You've heard it before. The niches are in the riches. You got to niche down. You can only do one thing. Is that true? Is that really true? If you're wrestling with that question or that whole niching thing, then I want you to come into this episode. We're going to share some tips with you today. Welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Koss, and today we're going to tackle this subject that gets a lot of buzz. There's a lot of gray areas, and let's just tackle it. So when we hear like you got to focus on one thing, the niches are in the riches. Okay, let's just look at it from a logical standpoint. If you focus on one thing, you could potentially be better at that one thing. All right, you see guys like maybe like a Gary Vaynerchuk, who's actually one person who talks about, and I love it so much, that you are the niche. He talks about you being the niche. We see him being able to talk about various things. Now, we also have to take into consideration that he's done the wine industry for a while before he started talking about other things. By the way, I rock with Gary Vaynerchuk. Then you have a guy like Alex Hormozi, who I also rock with, who says, you don't need to niche. So all of these like famous people giving us these different opinions and different perspectives, how do we figure out what it is that we should actually do as a smaller business owner? We're not making millions yet, or maybe we are. I'm not yet. Something that you can think about is, if you're doing more than one thing, are those things actually complementing each other? Right? When I was strictly an in-person fitness coach, I was also doing some life coaching because I love life coaching. And I strongly believe that life coaching helps enable the person to actually get their fitness goals. So they complemented each other. Now, a mistake that I also made was when I was doing fitness coaching, mainly in-person fitness coaching, I was doing some other things that may not have married or meshed as well. So my suggestion is, if you're doing more than one thing, do those things actually help each other? Right? If you're a fitness coach, or let's say you're a fitness coach and you also are a photographer, they could marry each other, where you're taking professional pictures of clients and your own fitness videos and things like that. It could marry each other like that. But being a fitness coach and then being like a wedding planner, those probably wouldn't match. And with that, you'll probably throw people off on your social media platforms. But one thing I do want to say is, when you start thinking about niching, you usually think, I can only talk about this one thing every day, all day. And that is not the truth. I would like to say, if you think that people want to buy from somebody who only talks about this one thing every day, all day, probably not as much as you think. People honestly want to see you on your social media platforms being a normal person. Also, they want to see things that you face, things that you've overcome. They want to see things that you're working through, some behind the scenes stuff. And oftentimes that is not exactly the niche. Right now, as of today is March the 19th. I'm a life and content coach. I love both of those. So I'm a life coach, and I help people coaching them with their content, which usually ends up being some form of life coaching, because if you're stuck with content, it's probably something in your head. Now, with that being said, a way that you can think about looking at the niche topic, if you want to go towards niching down or just being broad, it's always up to you, right? There's no rule that says you could only do one thing. And yes, people will say, yes, but you'll get richer just sticking to one thing. That might be true, but if your goal isn't to get richer, if your goal is to enjoy your life and to be able to do things you love, then that's your goal. There's a famous she was a vlogger. She's a beast at marketing, Jules Kim. She recently, a little while ago, switched over from being just a marketer and stuff like that. She switched over completely to just being a life coach. which is freaking cool because you can do anything you want at any time. So to look at the niche, think about first, am I trying to go into this lane to actually get paid, or am I going into this lane to make an impact? If that's your answer, you could pick one of those, whichever one you choose. Then you want to think, if I'm going into it to get paid, are people paying people in this industry? Right? So let's just use content creation. Yes, people are paying people through like brand deals and stuff like that. But some other ways that people are paying people is they want people to handle the content for them. Let's say you are a life coach. People may not just pay because you say you need life coaching helps, but they may pay you if you tell them, I help executives lose 20 pounds in 90 days. That's really, really specific. It's a goal and it's a result tied to it. You can think of it like that. Or if you want to think of it this way with the whole niching thing, you can do what Gary Vaynerchuk talks about. You just be the niche. Now, will you go viral? Will things speed up? Who knows? I just know I want people to not get so caught up in what famous people are saying only from the standpoint that they're at now, right? They may be saying, you need to niche down, don't talk about anything else. And then they did the opposite. Or they may tell you to talk about everything and then they're doing the opposite. Or they may tell you to only talk about your behind the scenes every day. It's always going to be up to you and what your audience wants and what your audience is gravitating towards. But I just want to give you this tip. You can do what you want to do. You can. If you decide to niche by going one thing and focusing hard at that, cool. If you decide to go 2 lanes, cool. Whatever is going to allow you to be better at what you want to do, whatever is going to allow you to sleep better at night, whatever is going to allow you to actually keep showing up, go do that. And you might find down the line, hey, I don't want to do that second lane anymore. I just want to do this one lane. Or you may find out that you wanted to niche by helping women color their hair. You find out years later that there's no money in that, or people aren't gravitating towards that. You can change. You can always change. I don't know why we get so fixated in thinking that because we pick one thing, if we change, something is wrong with us. Nothing's wrong with you if you feel like changing, if I can speak today. So to wrap up, today, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about you being the niche. He talks about baseball cards, he talks about business, he talks about content, he talks about sports, he talks about a lot of things. And we look at him. We're not always looking at the lanes. We're looking at him as a person and what he's doing. Then you may have somebody like Alex Hormozy or some of the OGs in the game, like a Warren Buffett, that only focuses on one thing. But as a life coach, also, I'm going to say your happiness and your sanity and your peace matters way more than you niching and driving yourself crazy. Does that make sense? You want to make sure that I'm picking this thing because it may be in my heart, because business is hard in general. Entrepreneurship is very, very hard. And I don't want to be doing things just for the money, and I don't have any inclination to get better at it because it's not going to last for long. Do you want to think, do I have a passion for this, or do I have some inclination to get better at this? Because business world is brutal. It's a grind. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Can I get better at this? Do I want to get better at this? Am I even good at this? If I tried to go be a hairdresser right now, it probably would not go well. I don't know anything about doing hair. But if you put me in the gym, if you put me maybe in front of someone who's struggling with content, I light up. If you put me in front of somebody who feels stuck and they want to get unstuck, I light up. So think about those things. Am I good at it? Am I willing to get better at it? Or am I willing to stick it out? And that should help you with the whole niching down or not niching down. Most of all, go be great and get unstuck. Take care, guys.